The night I collapsed into the arms of Manhattan's most dangerous man, I had 73 cents in my bank account and paint stains on my only good dress. They say hunger makes you see things. Maybe that's why when Victor Moretti caught me, this man whose name people only whispered, I thought I saw something human in those cold eyes. I was wrong. What I saw was far more dangerous, want. And in 6 months, that want would either destroy me or remake me into someone I didn't recognize. This is how it happened. Hit like, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels, and stay until the end, because the fall was just the beginning. The chandelier overhead cost more than Lena's entire student loan debt. She knew this because she'd overheard 2 women in silk gowns discussing it while she refilled their champagne glasses. Crystal flutes she was terrified of dropping, each one probably worth a month's rent. The Ashford Gallery Gala was the kind of event Lena had only seen in movies. 3 floors of Manhattan's elite gathered to pretend they cared about art while really measuring each other's net worth. She was here because the catering company had called her at 6 that morning, desperate. Someone hadn't shown up. $50 cash, they'd said. She'd said yes before they finished the sentence. Now, 8 hours later, her feet screamed in borrowed heels half a size too small, her head pounded from skipping meals, and her hands shook as she navigated through the crowd with a tray of hors d'oeuvres that cost more per bite than her weekly grocery budget. "Excuse me," she murmured, sliding between a man in a tuxedo that probably cost 5 figures and a woman dripping in diamonds. Neither acknowledged her. To them, she was furniture. Useful, invisible, disposable. Lena had been invisible her whole life. The scholarship kid at Pratt Institute, surrounded by trust fund babies who treated their education like a hobby. The girl from Queens in a world of Upper East Side apartments and summer homes in the Hamptons. She'd learned to wear it like armor, that invisibility. It hurt less than trying to belong. She'd eaten 1 meal today, half a bagel at 7 this morning, saved from yesterday because she couldn't afford to buy lunch. Her stomach had stopped growling hours ago, gone quiet in that dangerous way that meant her body was running on fumes and spite. The room tilted slightly. Lena blinked hard, steadying herself against a marble column. Just 2 more hours. She could make it 2 more hours, collect her $50, and go home to her apartment where the heat barely worked, and she'd built a makeshift studio in the corner because she couldn't afford proper space. "More champagne here," someone snapped their fingers at her. Not at her face, at her general direction, like summoning a dog. Lena turned, painting on the bland service smile she'd perfected. The woman didn't look at her, just thrust out an empty glass. As Lena reached to take it, her vision blurred at the edges. Not now. Not here. She took the glass, turned toward the bar, and made it exactly 4 steps before the floor rushed up to meet her. The tray slipped from her hands. She heard glass shattering, distant and underwater. Her knees buckled. This was going to hurt, she thought distantly. The marble floor, the humiliation, the $50 she wouldn't get paid, all of it. Arms caught her, strong, steady, smelling of expensive cologne and something else. Power, maybe, if power had a scent. Her cheek pressed against fine wool, a heartbeat steady beneath it. "I've got you." The voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. Lena's eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. Dark eyes looked down at her, assessing. A face that was all sharp angles and controlled intensity, framed by dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. Not handsome in any soft way, too severe for that, but magnetic, the way lightning was magnetic. She knew him. Everyone in this room knew him, even if they pretended not to stare. Victor Moretti. Real estate empire, old money mixed with new ambition, and rumors, always rumors. The kind of man who got what he wanted, no matter what it cost or who it destroyed. "I'm fine," Lena managed, trying to pull away. Her body had other ideas, threatening to fold again. His arms tightened, not painful, but immovable. "You're not." He looked over her head. "Gerard, clear the blue room. Get Dr. Matthews here. Now." "Sir? I didn't ask you to think." The voice hadn't raised, didn't need to. Around them, people moved like currents parting around a stone. Someone ushered guests away from the broken glass. Another man, Gerard presumably, was already on his phone. "Really, I just need to sit down," Lena said. Her tongue felt thick. When had the room gotten so cold? "I'm working. I can't—" "You're not working anymore tonight." Victor shifted his grip, lifting her fully off her feet. The world spun. Don't argue. You'll fall again, and I prefer not to repeat myself. He moved through the gallery like he owned it. He probably did, Lena thought hazily. Men like Victor Moretti owned everything. The crowd parted without him saying a word, people stepping aside with expressions that ranged from curious to calculating. A few women watched with naked envy. One man's face tightened with something that looked like fear. They passed into a quieter corridor, then through a door into a room that was all dark wood and leather furniture. A private office or lounge, the kind of space that whispered money so old it didn't need to shout. Victor set her on a leather couch with surprising gentleness, then moved to a side table. Drink this. He pressed a glass of water into her hand. Slowly. Lena's hand shook as she took it, water sloshing against the rim. She managed a sip, then another. The cold shocked her system, bringing the world back into sharper focus, which meant she could fully appreciate how completely her night had gone to hell. I'm sorry, she said. The tray, the glasses, I'll pay for them. It might take a while, but I'll... No, you won't. Victor stood over her, arms crossed. He'd removed his jacket, draped it over a chair. In his crisp white shirt and perfectly knotted tie, he still looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Lena was suddenly, painfully aware of her stained dress, her cheap shoes, the way her hair was falling out of its pins. When did you last eat? The question was so unexpected that she answered honestly. This morning, half a bagel. Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe, though she couldn't imagine why. That's 15 hours. I had coffee, too. That doesn't count. He pulled out his phone, typed something. The doctor will be here in 10 minutes. You're going to sit there and drink that water until she arrives. I can't afford a doctor. I didn't ask if you could afford it. I don't take charity. Good thing this isn't charity. He sat in the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, studying her with an intensity that made her want to squirm. You work the event, you collapse. That makes you my responsibility for the evening. Consider it liability protection. That's not how liability works. His mouth twitched. It might have been a smile, if men like him smiled. Are you always this argumentative when someone tries to help you? Are you always this controlling when someone doesn't need your help? This time it was definitely a smile, brief as lightning. Yes. Despite everything, the humiliation, the exhaustion, the sheer absurdity of sitting in a private room with Victor Moretti, Lena almost laughed. She took another sip of water instead, buying time to think. She should leave. Get up, apologize, and walk out before this situation got any more complicated. Men like Victor Moretti didn't help girls like her out of kindness. There was always an angle, always a price, and Lena had nothing worth what he could demand. But her body had other ideas. Now that she was sitting, the adrenaline was draining away, leaving her lightheaded and shaky. The thought of standing up, walking back out into that crowd of people who'd watched her collapse, taking the subway home, it felt impossible. What's your name? Lena looked up. Victor was still watching her with that unnerving focus, like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Lena Hart. You're a student. It wasn't a question. Lena glanced down at her hands. Paint stains under her fingernails that wouldn't come out no matter how much she scrubbed. How did you know? The way you looked at the gallery upstairs. Everyone else was here to be seen. You were actually looking at the art. He leaned back, somehow making the movement look dangerous. What do you study? Painting. Pratt Institute. Good school. Great school, Lena corrected. If you can afford to focus on your work instead of killing yourself with jobs just to make rent. She shouldn't have said that. Too honest, too raw. But exhaustion had stripped away her filter, and she was so tired of pretending everything was fine when it felt like she was drowning. Victor's expression didn't change. Show me. What? Your work. Show me. I don't have anything with me. Phone. Lena hesitated. Her portfolio was on her phone, but it was also deeply personal, the only thing that was truly hers. Letting him see it felt like letting him inside her head, but he'd caught her when she fell. He'd brought her to a private room, called a doctor, given her water. Whatever his motives, he'd kept her from cracking her skull on marble floor. She could give him this. She pulled out her phone. Screen cracked, case held together with tape, and navigated to her photos. Her hands were steadier now, the water helping. She found her portfolio folder and held it out. Victor took the phone carefully, like it might break. His eyes dropped to the screen, and Lena watched his face for a reaction. Her work wasn't pretty. It wasn't the kind of art that matched people's couches or made them feel good about themselves. She painted hunger, cold, the sharp edges of wanting things you couldn't have. Dark colors, harsh lines, figures that were more feeling than form. The current piece on screen showed a woman's hands, just hands, nothing else, reaching toward light that came from somewhere outside the frame. The fingers were elongated, desperate, and you could see every bone, every tendon. Lena had painted it at 3 a.m, unable to sleep because she'd been so hungry, and had channeled that ache into the canvas. Victor swiped to the next image, then the next. He didn't speak, just studied each piece with the same intensity he'd directed at her. Lena felt more exposed than if she'd been physically naked. "These are remarkable," he said finally. "They're depressing. They're honest." He looked up. "When's your next show?" Lena laughed, couldn't help it. The sound came out bitter. "I don't have shows. I'm a student working 3 jobs to pay rent and buy supplies. Gallery shows are for people with connections and trust funds. Or talent. Talent doesn't pay rent. It does if you know the right people." He handed back her phone. "I'm buying 3 pieces." Lena stared at him. "What?" "The hands reaching for light. The one with the subway platform, I assume that's the 7 train, and the self-portrait with the empty canvas. I'm buying all 3. He pulled out his phone again. "How much?" "You haven't even seen the actual paintings. The photos are enough. Name your price." This was insane. This didn't happen. People didn't just buy art from random students they'd found collapsing at galas. "I don't have prices. I've never sold." "Then I'll make you an offer. 15,000 each, 45 total." The room tilted again. Lena gripped the water glass so hard she was surprised it didn't shatter. "That's ridiculous. That's fair market value for an emerging artist with this level of technical skill and emotional depth. If anything, I'm lowballing you." He was typing something into his phone, completely calm, like he hadn't just offered her more money than she'd see in a year of working herself to death. "I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow to arrange pickup and payment. Do you prefer direct deposit or check?" "Stop." Lena set down the glass, pressed her hands to her temples. "Just stop. Why are you doing this? I told you. I want the paintings." Nobody pays $45,000 for 3 paintings from an artist they've never heard of. "I do." "Why?" Victor looked at her, and for a moment something shifted in his expression. Something that might have been recognition, or understanding, or hunger. "Because 15 hours ago, you were starving in a room full of food you couldn't eat, serving people who didn't see you, and you still managed to create something that makes me feel." He stood, buttoned his shirt cuffs with precise movements. "That's rarer than you think." A knock at the door interrupted whatever Lena might have said. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a medical bag. Professional, efficient, she introduced herself as Dr. Matthews and immediately began checking Lena's vitals. Victor stood by the window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, giving them privacy, Lena realized, or maintaining distance. With him, it was hard to tell the difference. "Low blood sugar, dehydration, exhaustion," Dr. Matthews said after a few minutes. She pulled out an energy bar and another bottle of water. "Eat this, slowly. When did you last have a full meal?" "Yesterday, lunch. No point lying to a doctor." "And before that?" "Day before. Dinner." Dr. Matthews glanced at Victor's back, then at Lena. Whatever she saw made her expression soften. "You're a student?" "Yes." "Let me guess, can't afford the meal plan, so you skip meals to pay for supplies." Lena nodded, unwrapping the energy bar with shaking fingers. "I went to art school too," Dr. Matthews said quietly. 20 years ago, different city, same story. It doesn't get easier, but it gets different." She packed up her bag. "You need to eat regularly, 3 meals a day minimum. If you can't afford that, there are campus resources. I've tried. I make too much from my jobs to qualify for assistance, but not enough to actually live on." Dr. Matthews looked at Victor again. She needs to eat something substantial within the hour, and she shouldn't be alone tonight in case there are complications from the collapse. I'll make sure of it, Victor said, not turning from the window. I'll be fine, Lena protested. I just need to go home and sleep. In an apartment where the heat barely works? Victor turned. Don't look surprised. Your lips are chapped from cold and you're wearing 2 layers under that dress. It's May. He saw too much. It was unnerving, the way his eyes cataloged details like he was compiling a dossier. Lena wanted to argue, but exhaustion was winning. Dr. Matthews left with instructions Lena only half heard. Victor made another phone call, this one brief and cryptic. Then he looked at her. There's a car waiting downstairs. It'll take you to one of my properties, a hotel in Midtown. You'll have a room for the night, room service, and tomorrow my assistant will contact you about the paintings. I can't. Yes, you can. You will. He picked up his jacket, shrugged it on. This isn't negotiable, Lena. You collapsed because you're running on empty. Take the help. Consider it an advance on the paintings if it makes you feel better. Why do you care? The question came out smaller than she intended. Victor paused at the door. Because I remember what it's like to be hungry, he said quietly, and because talent, like yours, deserves better than starving in obscurity. He left before she could respond, the door closing with a soft click that felt like punctuation. The hotel room was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a bed that could sleep 4, marble bathroom bigger than her entire apartment. Lena stood in the middle of it, still wearing her stained dress, and wanted to laugh or cry or both. Room service brought food she hadn't ordered, soup, bread, pasta, fruit, enough to feed a family. She ate mechanically, her body responding to sustenance even as her mind spun. $45,000. For her paintings. From Victor Moretti. She should be suspicious. She was suspicious. Men like him didn't help women like her without wanting something. But as she ate and the fog in her head cleared, she couldn't figure out the angle. He hadn't asked for anything, hadn't made any inappropriate comments or demands, just offered money for her work and a place to sleep off her collapse. Maybe that was the trap. Kindness, so unexpected that she'd lower her guard. Lena finished eating, showered in water pressure that felt like luxury, and wrapped herself in a hotel robe that was softer than any clothing she owned. The bed was calling her, but she couldn't sleep yet. Instead, she pulled out her phone and did what she should have done hours ago. She Googled Victor Moretti. The results were extensive. Real estate developer, billionaire, CEO of Moretti Holdings. Properties across Manhattan and beyond. Photos of him at galas, benefits, business meetings. Always in control, always watching. Articles described him as brilliant, ruthless, intensely private. There were rumors, mob connections, though nothing proven. Political influence, definitely. The kind of power that made mayors return his calls. And women. Of course there were women. Models, actresses, socialites, all beautiful and accomplished and temporary. None lasted more than a few months. He was generous with them. Jewelry, trips, opportunities, but he never pretended it was more than what it was. Lena closed the browser, stomach tight. This was who had caught her, who had bought her paintings, who had put her in this room. She should run, take the night shelter, ghost him tomorrow, forget this ever happened. Going deeper into Victor Moretti's orbit was like stepping into a riptide. You might enjoy the ride, but eventually it would drag you under. But $45,000, that was a year's rent. Supplies. Time to actually focus on her work instead of killing herself with jobs. It was a chance, maybe the only one she'd get. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Margaret Chen, Mr. Moretti's assistant. I'll be at the hotel tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss the paintings and arrange payment. Please be ready to provide account information for direct deposit. Mr. Moretti hopes you're feeling better. Professional, polite, impersonal, Lena typed back. I'll be ready, thank you. She lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside the window, Manhattan glittered like a promise or a threat. Somewhere in that sprawl of light and steel, Victor Moretti was probably working, making deals, running his empire. Did he think about her at all? Or was this just another Tuesday for him? Buy some art, help a struggling student, move on to the next thing? Lena didn't know. Couldn't know. But as she finally drifted off to sleep in sheets, With a thread count higher than her monthly income, she couldn't shake the memory of his eyes on her. That intensity, like she was something worth looking at, worth seeing. She'd been invisible her whole life. For one night, she'd been seen. Morning came with sunlight flooding through windows she'd forgotten to curtain. Lena woke disoriented, tangled in luxury sheets, her body aching in new ways. Properly fed and rested for the first time in weeks, she could feel every bruise from last night's near fall. Room service had left breakfast outside her door, fresh fruit, coffee, pastries. She ate slowly, watching the city wake up below. People rushing to work, tourists gathering by the park, the endless motion of Manhattan. Her phone said 9:47. Margaret Chen would be here soon. Lena had washed her dress in the sink last night, hung it to dry. It was still slightly damp, but wearable. She put it on, tried to tame her hair into something presentable, and waited. At exactly 10 o'clock, there was a knock. Margaret Chen was 50-ish, Asian American, with sharp eyes and an efficient manner that reminded Lena of Dr. Matthews. She carried a tablet and a leather portfolio, and she got straight to business. "Mr. Moretti would like to purchase 3 paintings," Margaret said, sitting at the room's desk. The pieces showing hands reaching toward light, a subway platform, and a self-portrait. He's prepared to pay $15,000 per piece, $45,000 total. These photos are from your phone. Do the actual paintings match these dimensions? She turned the tablet around. Lena had sent her portfolio, apparently, or Victor had forwarded it. The images were displayed with professional formatting, measurements noted below each one. "Yes," Lena said. "Those are accurate." "Excellent. Payment will be made upon receipt of the paintings. Can you have them ready for pickup by this Friday?" 3 days. Lena's mind raced. The paintings were at her apartment, stacked against the wall in her makeshift studio. They'd need to be properly packed, protected. "I think so, yes." "Good. Here's the contract." Margaret pulled papers from the portfolio. "Standard purchase agreement. You retain copyright and reproduction rights. Mr. Moretti will own the physical works, but cannot reproduce them commercially without your permission. You're welcome to have a lawyer review it." Lena scanned the contract. It was straightforward, shockingly fair, actually. No hidden clauses about exclusivity or future rights, just a clean purchase. "I don't have a lawyer." "Then I'd recommend finding one. Even for small transactions, it's good practice." Margaret pulled out a business card. "This is someone who does pro bono work for artists. Tell her I sent you." "Thank you." Lena took the card, overwhelmed. This woman was helping her. Victor's assistant, who probably made more in a month than Lena had seen in her life, was helping her navigate this. "One more thing." Margaret's expression shifted, became more personal. "Mr. Moretti asked me to give you this." She handed over an envelope. Thick cream-colored paper, Lena's name written in dark ink. Inside was a note in the same handwriting. "You're talented. Don't starve because of it." Below it, a credit card. Black, with her name embossed on it. "It's a corporate account," Margaret explained. "Linked to Moretti Holdings. Meant for business expenses. Supplies, studio space, meals. There's a $10,000 monthly limit. Use it or don't, that's your choice. But Mr. Moretti wanted you to have options." Lena stared at the card like it might bite her. "This is too much." "Mr. Moretti doesn't think so. He doesn't know me. He knows your work. For him, that's what matters." Margaret stood, gathering her things. "I'll send a courier Friday morning for the paintings. 9 a.m. sharp." "And Lena? Whatever you're thinking right now, that this is too good to be true, that there must be a catch. I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 12 years. He's many things, but he's not cruel. If he makes an offer, he means it." She left. Lena sat alone with a contract, a business card, and a credit card that represented more monthly spending than she'd had in her entire life. This was the moment. Accept or walk away. $45,000 would change everything. The credit card would change more. But what did Victor Moretti want in return? Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but this time she recognized it from the internet searches last night. Victor's personal cell. "Margaret says you looked terrified." "Don't be. The money is for your work. The card is so I don't have to worry about you collapsing again. Use them both." VM Lena read it 3 times, then typed, Why me? The response came immediately. Why not you? Because I'm nobody. Your work says otherwise. She stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This man, this dangerous, powerful, complicated man, saw something in her work. Maybe it was business. Maybe it was more. But he was offering her a chance, and she'd be an idiot not to take it. Lena took a breath and typed, "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Show me what you can do when you're not starving." The conversation ended there. Lena sat back, heart pounding. She'd just accepted Victor Moretti's help. For better or worse, their lives were tangled now. Friday came too fast and not fast enough. Lena spent 3 days preparing the paintings, packing them carefully in materials she'd bought with the credit card, the first time she'd used it, hands shaking as she swiped. The charge went through. No alarms, no rejection. Just like that, she had access to resources she'd never imagined. The courier arrived at 9 sharp, professional, careful. They loaded the paintings into a climate-controlled van and had her sign receipts. By 9:30, they were gone. By noon, her bank account showed a deposit, $45,000. Lena stared at the number until her eyes blurred. It was real. All of it was real. Her phone rang. Margaret. Mr. Moretti received the paintings. He's very pleased. He'd like to invite you to dinner tomorrow night to discuss your career. My career? He believes you have significant potential and would like to help position you in the art world. No obligations, just a conversation. Are you available? Lena should say no, should keep distance, take the money, run before this got complicated. But she heard herself say, yes, I'm available. Excellent. 7 p.m. I'll text you the address. Dress is business casual. A car will pick you up at 6:30. The call ended. Lena sat in her apartment, still cold, still cramped, but somehow feeling different now, like possibility had crept in around the edges. She had 24 hours to decide if she was brave enough to step deeper into Victor Moretti's world.
Yeah.
The restaurant was the kind of place Lena had only read about in magazines. Small, exclusive, the type where you needed reservations 6 months in advance and a recommendation from someone important. The car dropped her at the entrance, where a hostess greeted her by name and led her to a private room at the back. Victor was already there, standing by the window in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to. He turned as she entered, and Lena felt that same jolt of recognition. This man who'd caught her, who'd seen her work, who'd changed her life in less than a week. Lena. He gestured to the table. Thank you for coming. Thank you for dinner and everything else. She sat, hyper-aware of her dress. New, bought with the credit card, still cheaper than anything else in this room, but at least not stained or borrowed. The paintings are beautiful, better than the photos. Victor sat across from her. They're hanging in my office. I find myself looking at them instead of working. I don't know if that's a compliment to me or an insult to your work ethic. He smiled, brief and genuine. Both, probably. A waiter appeared with wine, poured glasses without asking. Victor waited until they were alone again before speaking. Margaret said you seemed uncertain about the credit card. It's generous, maybe too generous. It's practical. You're talented, but talent dies without support. I'm providing support. In return, I get to watch your career develop and potentially buy more of your work. He sipped his wine. Unless you'd prefer I stop. No. The word came out faster than Lena intended. No, I don't understand why you're doing this. I told you, I remember being hungry. Were you? Really? Victor's expression went distant. My father gambled away everything when I was 14. We lost the house, our reputation, everything. I spent 2 years sleeping on friends' couches and working construction jobs after school. I was talented too, numbers, business strategy, but talent doesn't matter when you're worried about where your next meal comes from. He focused back on her. Someone gave me a chance, paid for college, introduced me to the right people. I built everything from there. Who? Someone who saw potential and had the resources to nurture it. Now I'm in that position, and you have potential worth nurturing. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not a charity, Lena. This is an investment. You're going to be successful, and when you are, I'll have been there from the start. That has value. It made sense in a ruthless kind of way. Victor Moretti didn't do things without calculating the returns. But there was something else in his eyes when he looked at her, something that didn't fit neatly into business logic. "What do you want from me?" Lena asked quietly. "I want you to create. I want you to stop working 3 jobs and focus on your work. I want to introduce you to gallery owners and collectors. I want to watch you succeed." He paused. "Is that acceptable? And if I fail?" "You won't." "You can't know that." "I can. I've seen your work. I've seen how you fight. People who fight that hard don't fail. They just take longer to win." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. "I need to take this. Order anything you want." He stepped out. Lena sat alone, processing. This man believed in her work enough to invest real money. He wanted nothing except her success. It should feel like a gift. So why did it feel like standing at the edge of something she couldn't see the bottom of? Victor returned 15 minutes later, tension around his eyes. "I apologize. Business doesn't stop." "It's fine. Is everything okay?" "It will be." He signaled the waiter, ordered for both of them without asking what she wanted. Normally that would annoy her, but somehow he'd chosen exactly what she'd have picked. "Tell me about your work. What drives it?" Lena hadn't expected that question. "I paint what I feel. Usually that's hunger, cold, wanting. The space between having nothing and needing everything." "And now that you're not starving?" "I don't know yet. Haven't painted since the collapse." "You're afraid." "Maybe. What if the desperation was what made it good? What if comfort makes me mediocre?" Victor studied her. George O'Keeffe didn't paint her best work while starving. Neither did Rothko. Suffering doesn't make you talented, Lena. It just makes you suffer. Talent is what you do with it after. The food arrived. They ate, and the conversation drifted to safer topics. Art history, Manhattan, the gallery where they'd met. Victor was surprisingly easy to talk to when he wasn't being intimidating. He asked questions, listened to her answers, remembered details. By the time dessert came, Lena had almost forgotten to be nervous. "I'm hosting a dinner party next month," Victor said, setting down his coffee. "Collectors, gallery owners, artists, I'd like you to attend." "I don't know anyone in that world." "You'll know me. That's enough." He pulled out his phone, typed something. "And I'm hiring you a studio." "What?" "You can't work in that apartment. It's too small, too cold. There's a space in Williamsburg, north-facing light, proper ventilation, enough room to work on multiple pieces. It's yours if you want it." "Victor, the rent is a tax write-off for me. You'd be doing me a favor." His eyes held hers. "Let me do this." Lena wanted to argue, but she'd seen the studio space in her dreams, imagined what she could create with room to breathe and proper light. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Show me what you create there." The car took her home at midnight. Lena sat in the back, watching the city blur past, her mind spinning. In 1 week, Victor Moretti had bought her paintings, given her financial breathing room, and now offered her a studio. He'd taken her from invisible to visible, from struggling to supported. She should be grateful. She was grateful. But as the car pulled up to her building, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with terms she didn't fully understand. Her phone buzzed. "Victor, get some sleep. Tomorrow we look at the studio. Not a question, a statement. Because that's who he was, a man who made decisions and expected the world to follow." Lena typed back. "Okay." But as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, she wondered what she'd actually agreed to, and whether, when the time came, she'd regret it. The studio was perfect, and that was the problem. Lena stood in the doorway of the Williamsburg space, morning light pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows that faced north, exactly like Victor had promised. Exposed brick walls, polished concrete floors, enough square footage to set up multiple workstations, a proper sink with industrial drainage, climate control, storage space, everything she'd ever wanted and nothing she'd earned. "What do you think?" Victor stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence without touching. He'd picked her up at 8, shown up at her building in a black car that made her neighbors stare. Now he watched her reaction with that same intense focus he brought to everything. "It's too much." "It's practical." "Victor, the rent on this place has to be tax deductible. We've established this. He moved past her into the space, running his hand along the brick. I own the building. This unit's been vacant for 3 months. Having an artist in residence adds value to the property. You're doing me a favor. You own the building. I own several buildings. Of course you do. Lena stepped inside, her shoes echoing on the concrete. In the far corner, someone had left an easel. Probably from the previous tenant, another artist who'd cycled through and moved on. Or moved up. Or gave up entirely. What happened to the last person who had this space? Does it matter? It might. Victor turned to face her. He was wearing jeans today, dark, expensive, and a leather jacket that made him look less like a CEO and more like something dangerous. She got a gallery deal in Chelsea, left to set up a larger studio downtown. The space has good energy if you believe in that sort of thing. Do you? I believe spaces have history. What you do with that history is up to you. He checked his phone, frowned at whatever he saw there. I need to make a call. Look around. See if it works. He stepped outside, already dialing. Through the windows, Lena watched him pace, his free hand gesturing as he spoke. Even from here, she could see the shift in his posture, the CEO mode, the voice that expected compliance. She turned back to the empty studio. It would work. Better than work. It would transform everything. She could set up her canvases here, spread out her supplies, work through the night without worrying about neighbors complaining. No more cramped apartment corners. No more choosing between heat and paint supplies. But accepting this meant accepting Victor's presence in her life, not just as the man who bought her paintings, but as someone who was actively shaping her path. And men like Victor Moretti didn't shape things without expecting them to take a certain form. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, Casey. Some guy in a suit just knocked asking if you still live here. I said you'd moved. Was that wrong? Lena's stomach tightened. She typed back. What kind of guy? 40s, expensive watch, had a file folder with your name on it. What did you tell him? That you moved last month, no forwarding address. He left a card. Says he's from Student Loan Services. Lena closed her eyes. She'd been avoiding those calls for weeks. The bills had been piling up, and now that she had money, she should pay them. Would pay them. But the fear didn't drain away just because her bank account had numbers in it now. Victor came back inside, pocketing his phone. He took one look at her face and stopped. What happened? Nothing, just my roommate. You're lying. I'm dealing with it. Lena. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides. What happened? She shouldn't tell him. This wasn't his problem, wasn't his business. But the weight of it was suddenly too much, and he was standing there looking at her like her problems mattered. Someone came by my apartment looking for me. Student Loan Services. I've been behind on payments. Victor's expression didn't change. How much do you owe? That's not your concern. How much? 38,000. The number came out flat. She'd stopped attaching emotion to it months ago, when it became clear she'd never catch up. I've been on forbearance twice already. They're probably starting collection. Give me the account information. No. Lena? No. She turned away, focusing on the windows, the light, anything but his face. You've done enough. Too much. I'm not letting you pay my debts. Why not? Because then I owe you everything, and I don't know what you want in return. The silence stretched between them. Lena could hear traffic from the street below, the distant sound of construction, her own heartbeat too loud in her ears. I want you to create, Victor said finally. His voice was quieter now, careful. I want you to stop being afraid. I want to watch what happens when someone with your talent doesn't have to choose between making art and surviving. He moved closer, not touching, but near enough that she could feel the warmth of him. That's what I want. Nothing else. People don't help without wanting something. No. People like the ones you've known don't help without wanting something. I'm not them. Lena turned to face him. Then what are you? Someone who sees what you could be and has the resources to help you get there. His eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to owe me. I'm asking you to let me invest in something I believe in. There's a difference. And if I fail, if I take all this and produce nothing worth the investment, you won't. You keep saying that like it's fact. Because it is. Victor pulled out his phone again. Give me the loan information. I'll have it handled by tomorrow. I don't. This isn't negotiable. His voice had shifted back to CEO mode, the tone that expected obedience. You can fight me on a lot of things, Lena, but not this. Those people will destroy your credit, garnish whatever wages you earn, make your life hell. I can make it disappear with a phone call. Let me. She should refuse, should hold her ground, maintain independence, not let this man sweep in and fix everything. But the thought of that debt vanishing, of not waking up with that weight on her chest, it was too tempting. Why? The word came out broken. Why do you care this much? Victor's expression softened just for a moment. Because nobody cared when I was drowning, and because watching you drown when I can throw you a rope feels like a waste. Lena pulled out her phone with shaking hands and found the loan servicer's information. She read him the account number, the details, everything. He typed it all into his phone without comment. Done, he said. Consider it handled. I'll pay you back. No, you won't. You'll paint. That's payment enough. Victor, take the studio, Lena. Paint. Show me what you can do when you're not weighted down. He gestured to the space around them. This is yours if you want it. Say yes. She looked around the studio again, the light, the space, the possibility of it all. Then back at Victor, this complicated, dangerous man who'd crashed into her life and wouldn't stop fixing things she'd learned to live with, broken. Yes, she said. Okay. Yes. Something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief. Good. The lease is ready. Month to month, so you're not trapped. Keys are at the front desk. Move in whenever you're ready. Just like that? Just like that. Her phone rang. Casey again. Lena answered, stepping away slightly. Hey, where are you? That guy came back. He's saying he needs to talk to you about outstanding balances and legal action. Lena, what's going on? It's handled. I'm handling it. He says you owe almost $40,000. I know it's being taken care of. Just tell him I'll contact the office directly. Are you okay? You sound weird. Lena glanced at Victor, who was studying the brick wall like it held secrets. I'm fine. Better than fine. I'll explain later. She hung up. Victor was watching her now, that intensity back in full force. The loan officer? My roommate. The guy came back. Lena rubbed her temples. This is moving too fast. A week ago I was serving champagne and trying not to starve. Now I have a studio and you're paying off my debts, and I don't know how to process any of this. You don't have to process it. You just have to accept it. That's not how I work. Then learn. He moved toward the door. I have meetings. Take the afternoon. Get familiar with the space. Margaret will send over the lease and building access information. Victor, wait. Lena caught his arm. The leather was soft under her fingers, expensive. Thank you, I mean it. Even if I don't understand why, thank you. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition, heat, danger. Then he stepped back, breaking the contact. Paint something for me, he said. Something new. Not born from hunger, but from possibility. I want to see what that looks like. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. Lena stood alone in the studio that was now hers, sunlight warming the concrete floor, and tried to remember how to breathe. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of paint and transformation. Lena moved her supplies into the studio gradually, afraid to commit fully until she was sure this wasn't a dream that would evaporate. But the keys worked every morning. The lease paperwork arrived, straightforward and binding. Her student loan account showed a zero balance with a note, paid in full. Victor had made it all disappear, just like he'd promised. She didn't see him during those weeks, just texts, brief and sporadic. How's the studio? And have you started the new piece? She'd respond with photos of her progress, and he'd send back single-word reactions. Good. Better. Yes. It should have felt impersonal. Instead, it felt like he was giving her space to breathe, to adjust, to figure out who she was when she wasn't drowning. Casey visited once, took one look at the studio, and whistled low. Okay, so you're definitely sleeping with him. I'm not sleeping with him. Lena, Rich guy pays your debts, sets you up in a studio that probably costs more per month than most people's mortgages, buys your paintings for insane money. You're either sleeping with him or you're about to. He's investing in my career. That's what they all say. Casey walked around the space, taking it in. Is he hot? That's not relevant. So, yes. Is he married? No. Dating anyone? I don't think so. Then, yeah, you're going to sleep with him. Casey turned to face her. Just be careful, okay? Guys like that don't do things for free. There's always a price. After Casey left, Lena stood in front of her canvas and tried to paint. But the image that kept forming wasn't the abstract piece she'd planned. It was hands again, but this time not reaching desperately for light. These hands were being offered something, and the space between giving and taking was filled with question marks. She scrapped it, started over, scrapped that too. By the third week, she had nothing to show but false starts and frustration. Her phone rang. Victor, finally. You're stuck, he said without preamble. How do you know? Because you haven't sent me any photos in 4 days. You always send photos when you're making progress. Lena sat on the floor of her studio, surrounded by abandoned canvases. I don't know what to paint anymore. Paint what you feel. I don't know what I feel. Then come to dinner tomorrow and figure it out. The dinner party I mentioned, it's tomorrow night. She'd forgotten, or blocked it out. The thought of navigating a room full of collectors and gallery owners while she had nothing new to show made her want to hide. I'm not ready. You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up. A pause. I'll send a car at 6. Dress as cocktail. Don't argue. He hung up before she could protest. Lena sat in the silence of her perfect studio and felt like a fraud. Victor had given her everything she needed to succeed, and she was wasting it because she didn't know how to create without desperation driving her. Maybe Casey was right. Maybe there was always a price, and Lena just hadn't figured out what it was yet. The dress arrived the next morning, delivered to the studio, which meant Victor knew she'd been spending nights here instead of going back to her apartment. The box was unmarked, expensive. Inside, black silk that moved like water, elegant without being showy. Her size exactly. A note, you don't have to prove anything tonight. Just be yourself. VM Lena held the dress against her body, looking at her reflection in the studio's windows. The girl looking back was different from the one who'd collapsed at a gala 3 weeks ago. Better fed, less tired, wearing clothes that fit, but underneath, still terrified of not being enough. The car arrived at 6 sharp. Lena had done her makeup carefully, tamed her hair into something sleek, put on the dress that fit like it had been made for her. She looked the part of someone who belonged in Victor's world. Now she just had to convince herself. The dinner was at Victor's penthouse. Of course it was. The car pulled up to a building in Tribeca, all glass and steel and understated wealth. A doorman greeted her by name, directed her to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. The ride up was silent except for her heartbeat. Lena watched the floors tick by, 20, 30, 40, until the elevator opened directly into a space that stole her breath. The penthouse was massive, all open concept and floor-to-ceiling windows showing Manhattan spread out like a promise. Modern furniture, art on the walls, and people, at least 30 of them, holding drinks and talking in clusters. The kind of people Lena had only seen in magazines. Victor spotted her immediately. He crossed the room like he owned it, which he did, and Lena felt every eye track the movement. He was in a dark suit, no tie, looking like power personified. You came, he said, stopping in front of her. You didn't really give me a choice. There's always a choice. His eyes moved over her, assessing. The dress fits. How did you know my size? I pay attention. He offered his arm. Come, I'll introduce you. The next hour was a blur of names and faces. Gallery owners from Chelsea and Soho, collectors with private museums, artists whose work Lena had studied in school. Victor introduced her to each one with the same simple phrase. This is Lena Hart. She's the next artist you need to know. Not might be. Not could be. Would be. Like it was already decided. Some people looked skeptical, others interested. A few clearly only cared because Victor had said they should, but they all listened when Lena talked about her work, and several asked to see her portfolio. Send me images, said a woman named Diana Chen, who ran a gallery in Chelsea. If they're half as good as Victor says, we should talk. They're better than I say, Victor said from beside Lena. His hand was on her lower back, a light pressure that felt both supportive and possessive. Diana smiled. High praise from a man who doesn't give it lightly. She handed Lena a business card. Call me Monday. After Diana moved away, Lena turned to Victor. You're overselling me. I'm stating facts. You're putting pressure on me to deliver. Good. Pressure makes diamonds. He guided her toward the windows, away from the crowd. You're doing well. I'm terrified. That doesn't show. I'm a good actor. No, you're not. You're honest to a fault. It's one of the things I like about you. He handed her a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Drink. It helps. Lena took a sip, letting the bubbles settle her nerves. Below them, the city glittered. From up here, Manhattan looked manageable, mapped out in grids of light. She knew better. Down there, it was chaos and struggle and dreams that died on sidewalks. Do you ever miss it? She asked. Being down there, fighting? No. Victor's answer was immediate. I miss the clarity of it sometimes. When you're fighting to survive, you know exactly what matters. Up here, it gets complicated. You seem to handle complicated just fine. Because I make things simple. I decide what I want and I take it. He looked at her. It's not always pretty, but it's effective. And what do you want right now? The question hung between them. Victor's expression shifted, became something darker, more honest. That's a dangerous question. Maybe I like danger. You shouldn't, not with me. Why not? He turned to face her fully, and Lena felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Because when I want something, I don't stop until I have it, and I don't share. Heat flooded through her. They were talking about more than business now, more than art. The pretense had fallen away, leaving something raw underneath. Victor? Mr. Moretti. A man's voice cut through the moment. Victor's expression closed immediately, the CEO mask sliding back into place. He turned, and Lena saw a tall man in his 60s approaching, hand extended. Richard, Victor said, shaking the offered hand. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, though I hear you're collecting artists now, not just real estate. Richard's eyes slid to Lena, assessing. This must be the talented Ms. Hart. It is. Victor's hand returned to Lena's back. Lena, this is Richard Blackwell. He owns half of Soho and has terrible taste in art. Richard laughed. I have practical taste. Art that increases in value. Then you should buy Lena's work while you can still afford it. The conversation shifted to business, galleries, markets, investment potential. Lena listened, watching how Victor maneuvered the discussion, making her sound like a sure thing rather than a struggling student. He was selling her without making it obvious, positioning her as valuable because he'd chosen to invest. It was masterful and slightly terrifying. More people approached, more introductions, more cards pressed into her hand. By 9 o'clock, Lena had a dozen new contacts and a head spinning from champagne and possibility. Victor excused them, leading her to a quieter corner near his study. You should probably eat something. I'm not hungry. You're never hungry anymore. That's good. He opened the study door. Come here. I want to show you something. The study was smaller than the main space, but no less impressive. Dark wood, leather chairs, windows overlooking the city. And on one wall, her 3 paintings. Lena stopped, staring. She'd seen them in her cramped apartment under bad lighting, surrounded by chaos. Here, properly lit and mounted, they looked different, better, real. I look at these every morning, Victor said quietly. He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. They remind me why I do this. Do what? All of it. Build empires, make money, accumulate power. Because someone has to support the things that matter. And this, he gestured to the paintings, this matters. Lena's throat tightened. You barely know me. I know your work. That's enough. Is it? She turned to face him. They were very close now, close enough that she could see the silver threading through his hair, the lines around his eyes, the way he was looking at her like she was a problem he was trying to solve. Because sometimes I think you're investing in me for reasons that have nothing to do with art. You're right. The admission shocked her. Victor smiled slightly at her expression. I'm investing in you because your work moves me, because I see potential that could reshape the art world, and because... He paused, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. Because when I caught you that night, something shifted. I can't explain it better than that. But that's not an explanation at all. I know. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, intimate. I'm not good at this part. What part? The part where I want something I can't just buy. Lena's breath caught. Victor, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm just being honest. You asked what I wanted, and I'm telling you, I want you to succeed. I want to be part of that success. And I want... He stopped, jaw tightening. I want to know what happens when someone like you meets someone like me and doesn't run. Maybe I should run. Probably. His hand lingered near her face, not quite touching. But you won't. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you keep saying yes when you should say no. Because you feel it too. He was right. Lena had felt it from the beginning, that pull, that dangerous recognition. This man who'd caught her, who'd seen her work, who'd looked at her like she mattered. It terrified her and thrilled her in equal measure. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've had in years. I don't know how to be in your world. Then I'll teach you. What if I don't want to learn? Then I'll meet you in yours. He stepped back, breaking the tension. Dance with me. What? There's music playing. People are dancing. Dance with me. It wasn't a request. Victor took her hand and led her back to the main room, where someone had indeed started music. Several couples swayed near the windows, the party shifting into something more relaxed. Victor pulled Lena into his arms with practiced ease, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They moved together, and Lena felt hyper-aware of every point of contact, his hand warm through the silk of her dress, his chest solid against her, the way he smelled like expensive cologne in confidence. You're overthinking, he murmured near her ear. I'm always overthinking. I've noticed. He turned them smoothly, navigating around other couples. Stop analyzing and just feel. That's not how I work. Maybe it should be. They danced in silence for a while, the music washing over them. Around them, Victor's guests watched with varying degrees of interest. Lena could feel the speculation, the judgment. They were trying to figure out what she was to him. Business investment, charity case, newest acquisition. She wondered if they'd figured it out before she had. They're staring, she said quietly. Let them. Doesn't it bother you? No. Should it bother you? I don't know. Maybe. She looked up at him. What do they think I am? Does it matter? It might. Victor's hand tightened slightly on her waist. They think you're mine. And right now, in this moment, they're right. The words should have felt possessive, controlling. Instead, they sent heat through her entire body. Lena stumbled slightly, and Victor steadied her with easy strength. Careful. I'm not good at this. You're doing fine. I mean all of it. Dancing, parties, being someone people stare at. I'm used to being invisible. You were never invisible, just overlooked. There's a difference. He pulled her closer until there was barely any space between them. And you're not overlooked anymore. The song ended. Another started, slower this time. Neither of them moved to separate. I should go, Lena said without conviction. Should you? People are staring. I don't care. Victor, stay. The word was quiet but absolute. At least until the party ends, then we'll talk. About what? Everything. Lena knew she should refuse, should put distance between herself and this man who was rapidly becoming the center of her universe. But his arms were steady around her, and the music was soft, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. So she stayed. The party thinned out around midnight. Guests filtered toward the elevator in clusters, air-kissing Victor and promising to be in touch. Lena stood by the windows, watching the city below and trying to steady her pulse. Every time someone left, the penthouse got quieter, more intimate, until it was just her and Victor and the weight of everything unsaid between them. You want a drink? Victor appeared at her elbow, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. He looked less controlled now, more human. Real drink, not champagne. Whiskey, if you have it. His eyebrow lifted. Didn't take you for a whiskey drinker. My dad used to drink it. Before he left. Lena hadn't thought about her father in months, but being here in this tower of wealth brought back memories of their tiny apartment in Queens, the smell of cheap bourbon and broken promises. I hated the smell growing up. Then in college, I tried the expensive stuff and realized he'd just been drinking garbage. Victor moved to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. How old were you when he left? 12, you? 14, after he gambled everything away. He handed her the glass. Guess we both have daddy issues. Is that what this is? Lena took a sip, felt the burn. Good whiskey, smooth and complex. Nothing like the rot her father used to drink. 2 broken people finding each other? Maybe. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Victor leaned against the window, close enough that she could see her reflection in his eyes. Maybe I just met someone who makes me want to be honest for once. You're not honest with people? I'm strategic. There's a difference. He swirled his drink. I tell people what they need to hear to give me what I want. It's not lying exactly, just curating truth. That's definitely lying. Probably. He smiled without humor. But with you, I don't want to curate. I want to say what I actually think and see what happens. Okay. Lena turned to face him fully. Then tell me what you're actually thinking right now. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm thinking that I've wanted to kiss you since you snapped at me in that private room at the gallery. I'm thinking that watching you tonight, seeing these people realize what I already knew about your talent, felt better than closing a $1 billion deal. And I'm thinking that if I touch you right now, I won't want to stop. The honesty hit like a punch. Lena's breath caught, heat flooding through her. Victor, you asked. He drained his whiskey, set the glass down with deliberate care. That's what I'm actually thinking. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Whatever this is. I've dated, but not like this. Not with someone who... She gestured around the penthouse, at the art and the view and the casual wealth. I don't belong here. You think I belonged here when I started? Victor moved closer, and Lena's back hit the window. I was a construction worker's kid with good grades and no connections. Everything you see I built by refusing to believe I didn't belong. You can do the same. That's different. You're... what? A man? White? Lucky? His expression hardened. I worked 18-hour days for a decade. I made deals that kept me up at night. I became the kind of person people fear because being liked wasn't going to get me out of poverty. Don't romanticize my success, Lena. It cost me things you can't see. She'd hit a nerve. Lena could see it in the tension around his eyes, the way his jaw tightened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And you're not wrong. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it for the first time all night. This world isn't fair. I had advantages you don't. But talent is talent, and yours is real. That's not charity talking. That's someone who's looked at thousands of pieces of art and can count on one hand the number that actually moved me. 5 paintings in your whole life? 3 before yours. Lena set down her own glass before she dropped it. You're serious. I don't joke about art. Victor stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. I don't joke about things I want either. And I want you. Not just your work, not just the investment potential. You. You don't know me well enough to want me. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you're terrified of being ordinary. I know you're proud and stubborn, and you'd rather starve than accept help that comes with strings. I know you see the world in colors most people miss, and you translate that into something that makes people feel things they've buried. His hand came up, fingers brushing her jaw. I know enough. Lena should move. Should put distance between them, think this through, be rational. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes closing for just a second. When she opened them, Victor was watching her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. This is a bad idea, she whispered. You said that already. I'm saying it again. Noted. His thumb traced her lower lip. Want me to stop? She should say yes. Should protect herself from this man who could destroy her with a word, who held too much power, who'd become too important too fast. But honesty was what he'd asked for, so honesty was what she gave. No. Victor kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative, a kiss that felt like a claim being staked. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and Lena's hands found his chest, feeling his heart pounding as hard as hers. The whiskey taste mixed with something darker, hunger that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with want. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Victor rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. Tell me to stop. Why would I do that? Because I'm about to take you to my bedroom and I need to know you want that. Not because I paid your debts or bought your paintings or gave you a studio. Because you want me. Lena pulled back enough to see his face. For all his power and control, he looked uncertain, vulnerable, like her answer actually mattered in ways that went beyond ego. I want you, she said. This is still a terrible idea, but I want you. Something in his expression shifted, relief, hunger, possession all at once. He took her hand and led her through the penthouse to a bedroom that was all clean lines and masculine simplicity. Floor-to-ceiling windows here, too, the city spread out like they owned it. Victor turned to face her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Then Lena stepped forward, closing the distance, and kissed him first this time. His hands found the zipper of her dress, slid it down slowly, and the silk pooled at her feet like water. What happened next wasn't gentle or careful. It was two people who'd been circling each other for weeks finally giving in to gravity. Victor's control cracked, and underneath was something raw and honest that matched the desperation in Lena's own touch. They mapped each other with hands and mouths, learning what made the other gasp, where to press, and where to gentle. Later, much later, Lena lay in Victor's bed with his arm around her and the city glittering beyond the windows. Her heart was still racing, her skin flushed. Victor's breathing had evened out beside her, but she could tell from the tension in his body that he wasn't asleep. You're thinking too loud, he murmured against her hair. How can you tell? Your breathing changes. His hand traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's wrong. I don't know. Lena stared at the ceiling. A month ago, I was invisible. Now, I'm in bed with Victor Moretti, and I have gallery owners asking to see my work, and I can't paint anything worth showing them. You're scared. Terrified. Good. Fear means you care. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. But you're also overthinking. You're trying to create something worthy of the investment instead of just creating. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one who has to deliver. No, I'm the one who bet everything on you delivering. You think I'm not scared? His expression was serious. I told Richard Blackwell you were the next big thing. I convinced Diana Chen to look at your work. I put my reputation behind someone with 3 sold paintings and a portfolio of phone photos. If you fail, I look like an idiot. Lena hadn't thought about it that way. Why would you risk that? Because the alternative was watching you serve champagne at parties and wondering what you could have been. He lay back down, pulling her against him. And because I'm selfish, I want to say I knew you first, that I saw it before anyone else. You did see it first. Then prove me right. They lay in silence for a while. Lena listened to Victor's heartbeat, steady and strong, and tried to quiet the panic in her own chest. She'd crossed a line tonight, multiple lines. Sleeping with the man who'd invested in her career was textbook self-sabotage, the kind of thing that would make people question her talent. But it had also felt right in a way nothing else had in weeks, like 2 broken pieces clicking together, sharp edges aligned. I should go home, she said without moving. You could stay. That's probably not smart. Probably not. Victor's arm tightened around her. Stay anyway. So she did. Morning came too bright through the uncurtained windows. Lena woke to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. She found her dress, slipped it on, and padded barefoot into the main room. Victor stood at the kitchen counter in pajama pants and nothing else, typing on his phone with one hand and holding a coffee mug with the other. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression softened. Coffee? Please. He poured her a cup, fixed it the way she liked without asking. Cream, no sugar. Another detail he'd observed and catalogued. How do you feel about breakfast? Depends. Are you cooking or ordering? I don't cook, but I know a place that delivers. Of course you do. Lena took the coffee, wrapped her hands around the warmth. In daylight, last night felt both more and less real. Her body ached in ways that reminded her it had definitely happened, but standing in Victor's kitchen in last night's dress felt surreal. I should probably go, change clothes, get to the studio. Or you could stay, work from here. He gestured toward his study. There's space, light. You could paint? In your study? Why not? Because it's your space, your workspace. So share it. He set down his phone, giving her his full attention. I want to see you create. Watch the process. Is that allowed? Lena thought about it. The intimacy of letting someone watch her paint, see her false starts and frustrations. With anyone else, it would feel invasive. But Victor had already seen her at her lowest, caught her when she fell. Maybe watching her work wasn't that different. Okay, she said, but if you distract me, I'm leaving. I'll be quiet as a mouse. He wasn't quiet, but he also wasn't distracting in the way she'd expected. Victor set up his laptop in the study while Lena claimed space near the window, sketching preliminary ideas in a notebook she'd had in her purse. He worked on whatever businessmen worked on, calls, emails, documents, while she tried to capture the feeling from last night. Not the sex, though that hummed under everything. The moment before, when Victor had asked if she wanted him and she'd said yes. The freedom in that honesty, the terror and relief of admitting want without justification. After an hour, she had something. Not finished, barely started, but the bones of an idea that felt true. Can I see? Victor appeared at her shoulder, careful not to startle her. Lena showed him the sketch. A figure standing at the edge of something, a cliff maybe, or a doorway. Behind them, darkness. Ahead, light that could be dawn or fire. The figure's posture suggested both fear and determination, caught in the moment of choosing. This, Victor said quietly, this is what I've been waiting for. It's just a sketch. It's honest. He traced the figure's outline with one finger, not touching the paper. Paint this. I don't know if I can. Not here, not without your studio, right. Victor checked his watch. I have meetings this afternoon anyway. Go, work. Show me the finished piece when it's ready. Lena gathered her things, feeling dismissed and relieved in equal measure. At the door, she turned back. Victor was watching her with that intensity that still made her breath catch. Last night was last night, he said. Today is today. Paint, Lena. Everything else can wait. The dismissal should have stung. Instead, it felt like permission to stop overthinking and just create. Lena left, took the elevator down to street level, and caught a cab to her studio in yesterday's dress, and borrowed confidence. The piece took 3 days. Lena worked in bursts of manic energy and crushing doubt, building up layers of paint and scraping them away, searching for the truth underneath. The figure evolved, no longer gender-specific, more symbol than person. The edge they stood on became clearer, sharper. The light ahead took on qualities of both promise and threat. She painted through meals, through sleep, through the messages that buzzed on her phone. Casey asking if she was alive. Diana Chen saying she'd love to see new work. Victor sending single-word check-ins that she answered with photos of her progress. On the third night, she stepped back and looked at what she'd created. It wasn't perfect. The proportions were slightly off, the color balance darker than she'd intended. But it was honest. Raw. The kind of work that made people uncomfortable because it reflected something true about choice and risk and standing at edges. She took a photo, sent it to Victor with shaking hands. His response came 10 minutes later. I'm buying this one too. Lena laughed, something between relief and hysteria. She texted back, You can't buy everything I paint. Watch me. Victor, come to dinner tomorrow. Bring the painting. It's not dry yet. Then come without it. I want to see you. Lena stared at the message. Want, not need. The honesty he'd promised. She typed, Where? My place. 7. I'll cook. You said you don't cook. I lied. See you at 7. Lena showed up at 7:15 late because she'd changed outfits 3 times and still felt underdressed. Victor answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. You cook, she said, stepping inside. I cook. Not well, but adequately. He led her to the kitchen where something that smelled surprisingly good was simmering on the stove. Pasta, hard to screw up. You undersell yourself. Only in the kitchen. He handed her a glass of wine. How's the painting? Drying. Should be ready by next week. Good. Diana Chen called me. She wants to meet with you. Lena's stomach flipped. She called you? To ask if you were reliable. I said yes. Victor stirred the sauce. She's setting up a group show in July. Emerging artists. She wants to include you. That's 2 months away. Think you can have 3 pieces ready by then? I don't know. Maybe. Lena caught herself spiraling. Yes, I can do 3 pieces. Good. He plated the pasta with more skill than she'd expected. Come eat. They sat at the kitchen counter instead of the formal dining table. It felt deliberately casual, like Victor was trying to prove he could be normal. The pasta was good, not restaurant quality, but made with care. They talked about art, the gallery show, what pieces she might include. The one you just finished, Victor said. That needs to be one of them. It's too raw. That's why it needs to be there. People need to see what you can do when you're not performing. All art is performance. Bad art is performance. Good art is revelation. He refilled her wine. Show them something real. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Victor put on music, jazz, something instrumental and moody. They sat on the couch, not touching, but close enough that Lena could feel the heat of him. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why me? Really? Not the answer about my work or potential. The real reason. Victor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you know how some people go through life and nothing really touches them? They're successful, comfortable, but nothing makes them feel anything deep. That was me for a decade. I built this empire, and somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling things that weren't about winning or losing. He turned to look at her. Then I caught you falling and looked at your paintings, and something cracked open. You make me feel things. Uncomfortable things sometimes, but real things. And I'd rather be uncomfortable and alive than comfortable and numb. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. That's terrifying. Why? Because what if I can't keep doing that? What if the novelty wears off and you realize I'm just a broke art student who got lucky? Then I'd still want you. Victor reached out, tucked hair behind her ear in that gesture that was becoming familiar. This isn't about novelty, Lena. It's about recognition. Like my soul saw yours and said, that one. I can't explain it better than that. That sounds like something from a romance novel. Maybe romance novels get some things right. He pulled her closer. I'm not good at this. Relationships, emotions, anything that can't be negotiated or controlled. But I'm trying. For you, I'm trying. Lena kissed him, tasting wine and honesty. They stayed there on the couch for a long time, learning each other in ways that had nothing to do with sex and everything to do with trust. Later, wrapped in Victor's arms in his too-big bed, Lena thought about choice, about standing at edges and deciding to jump. She'd spent her whole life playing it safe, staying invisible, not asking for too much. And where had that gotten her? Starving and exhausted, invisible and forgotten. Victor had offered her a different path. Dangerous, complicated, with no guarantees, but alive. Real. The kind of life that left marks and made stories. She was choosing it, had already chosen it, the moment she said yes to everything he offered. Now she just had to be brave enough to see it through. The next morning, Lena woke before Victor and watched him sleep. In rest, his face lost that sharp edge of control. He looked younger, more vulnerable. She wanted to paint him like this, capture the softness he never showed the world. Her phone buzzed. Diana Chen. Can you meet tomorrow? 2 p.m. at the gallery. Want to discuss the show details? Lena's heart raced. This was real. Actually happening. She typed back, I'll be there. Victor stirred beside her, eyes opening slowly. What time is it? Early, 7. Come back to bed. I have to go. Meeting with Diana tomorrow, I need to prepare. Prepare how? I don't know. Look professional? Not seem terrified? She started to get up, but Victor caught her wrist. You'll be fine. She called you, remember? She wants you. She wants what you told her I could be. Same thing. He pulled her back down. 5 more minutes, then you can go panic in your studio. Lena settled against him, letting herself have this moment, the calm before everything changed. Because it was about to change. She could feel it building like pressure before a storm. In 2 months, she'd have a gallery show. Her work would be judged by people who actually mattered in the art world. And either she'd prove Victor right, or she'd prove every doubt she'd ever had about herself was justified. Stop thinking, Victor murmured against her hair. Can't help it. Then think about this. He tilted her face up. Whatever happens with the show, with your career, with any of it, I'm not going anywhere. You understand that? You can't promise that. Yes, I can. I don't make promises lightly. His expression was serious. I'm all in, Lena. You need to know that before this gets more complicated. It's already complicated. It's about to get more complicated. He kissed her forehead. But I want you to know where I stand, so when things get hard, and they will, you won't wonder if I'm still here. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this powerful, complicated man actually meant what he said. But life had taught her that people left. Her father, friends, even Casey would eventually move on. Everyone left. Okay, she said, because what else could she say? I believe you. Whether that was true or not, she wasn't sure, but she was willing to find out. Diana Chen's gallery was everything Lena had imagined, and nothing like she'd expected. The space itself was sterile white walls and polished concrete, designed to disappear so the art could speak. But Diana herself was warm, sharp-eyed, wearing paint-stained jeans and a blazer that probably cost more than Lena's first car. You're early, Diana said, looking up from her laptop. I like that. Traffic was lighter than I expected. Lena had actually been circling the block for 20 minutes, too nervous to come in. Victor says you're ready for this. Diana closed her laptop, gave Lena her full attention. Are you? The question wasn't rhetorical. Lena could feel Diana assessing her, looking for cracks in the facade. I don't know, maybe. Ask me after the show. Diana laughed. Honest. Also good. She gestured to a chair. Sit. Let's talk about what I'm looking for. The next hour was intense. Diana explained the group show, 5 emerging artists curated around the theme of transformation. She'd seen the photos of Lena's work, but she wanted to understand the artist behind it. Victor showed me the piece you just finished, Diana said. The figure at the edge. Tell me about it. Lena hesitated. The piece was personal, raw in ways she wasn't sure she could articulate. It's about choice. Standing at the moment before you commit to something that could destroy you or remake you. And which one is it? Destruction or transformation? Both, always both. Diana studied her. You're sleeping with him. The statement hit like cold water. Lena's face flushed. That's not... Relax, I don't care. Half the artists in this city have slept with their patrons at some point, but I need to know if you can handle the scrutiny that comes with it. Diana leaned forward. People will say Victor bought your spot in this show. They'll say your work isn't actually good, just well-connected. Can you deal with that? I don't know. Wrong answer. The right answer is yes, because my work speaks for itself. Diana's expression softened slightly. Look, I've seen your paintings. They're good, better than good. But this world is brutal, especially to women who get opportunities that look like favors. You need to be ready for that. Lena's stomach churned. She'd been so focused on the opportunity that she hadn't thought about the cost. What if they're right? What if I only got here because of Victor? Does it matter? You're here. The work is real. Everything else is noise. Diana pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Here's the contract. Standard terms, 40% commission on sales. The show runs for 6 weeks starting July 15th. I need 3 pieces from you, delivered no later than July 1st. Can you do that? Lena opened the folder, scanned the contract. The terms were fair, professional. This was real, actually happening. Yes, I can do that. Good. Sign and get it back to me by Friday. Diana stood, extended her hand. Welcome to the art world, Lena. Try not to let it eat you alive. Walking out of the gallery, Lena felt like she was floating and drowning simultaneously. She had a show. An actual gallery show with one of the most respected curators in Chelsea. But Diana's words echoed in her head. People will say Victor bought your spot. Her phone rang. Victor. How did it go? Good. Great. She offered me the show. I knew she would. He sounded pleased, satisfied. Dinner tonight? We should celebrate. I can't. I need to work. I have 3 pieces to finish by July 1st, and I barely have one completed. Panic was creeping in, tightening her chest. Victor, what if I can't do this? You can. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Meet me at the studio in an hour. I'm bringing champagne. I just said I can't. 1 hour. We're celebrating. Then you can spiral all you want. He hung up before she could argue. Lena stood on the sidewalk in Chelsea, surrounded by galleries she'd only dreamed of entering, and tried to remember how to breathe. This was what she wanted, what she'd worked for. So why did it feel like she was about to shatter? Victor showed up at her studio with champagne and takeout from a place that definitely didn't deliver to Williamsburg. He also brought something else, a large flat package wrapped in brown paper. What's that? Lena asked, eyeing the package. Open it. He set the champagne down, handed her the package. Inside was a canvas. Blank, pristine white, stretched and primed. Professional quality, the kind Lena had been buying with his credit card but still felt guilty about using. I don't understand. You're overthinking the show, putting pressure on every brushstroke because you think it has to be perfect. Victor leaned against her work table. So I brought you a canvas. No pressure, no agenda. Just paint something, anything. Get the fear out of your system. That's not how it works. Humor me. Lena looked at the blank canvas, then at Victor. He was watching her with that intensity that made her feel seen and exposed. You're manipulating me. I'm helping you. It's the same thing with you. Usually, but not this time. He opened the champagne, poured 2 glasses. Drink. Celebrate that you have a gallery show. Then paint whatever the hell you want without worrying if it's good enough for Diana Chen or anyone else. She wanted to argue. Instead, she took the champagne and drank, letting the bubbles settle her nerves. Victor set up the new canvas while she finished her glass, then refilled it without asking. I'm going to get drunk if you keep doing that, she said. Good. Might loosen you up. I don't paint drunk. Try it. Might be interesting. 2 glasses later, Lena was definitely tipsy, and Victor was sketching something in her notebook with more enthusiasm than skill. She watched him draw, terrible proportions, no sense of perspective, and laughed. What's funny? You're awful at this. I know. That's why I invest in people with actual talent. He held up the sketch, something that might have been a building or possibly a horse. What do you think? I think you should stick to real estate. Harsh, but fair. He tossed the notebook aside. Your turn. Show me what actual talent looks like. Lena approached the blank canvas with champagne courage and no plan. She picked up a brush, loaded it with paint, dark blue, almost black, and made the first mark. No sketch, no preparation, just instinct. Victor settled into a chair, watching silently. His presence should have been distracting, but instead it grounded her, reminded her why she was doing this. The painting that emerged over the next hour wasn't anything she'd planned. It was movement and emotion, abstract shapes that might have been figures or might have been feeling itself. She worked quickly, layering colors without overthinking, letting muscle memory and instinct guide her. When she finally stepped back, the canvas was a mess of dark blues and violent reds, slashes of gold cutting through like light through storm clouds. It was chaotic and raw, and nothing like the careful work she'd been trying to create. That, Victor said quietly, is what I've been waiting for. It's a mess. It's honest. He stood, moved closer to the canvas. This is what you should be making. Not careful, calculated pieces designed to impress gallery owners. This. Diana would never show this. Then don't show it to Diana. Keep it for yourself. Or give it to me. But remember what it felt like to create it. He turned to face her. That freedom, that lack of fear. That's where your best work lives. Lena looked at the painting, then at Victor. You got me drunk so I'd stop overthinking. Tipsy, not drunk. And yes, that's manipulative. I prefer strategic. He pulled her close, and she went easily, fitting against him like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Did it work? Maybe. She buried her face in his chest, smelling expensive cologne and paint fumes. I'm terrified of failing. I know. What if I can't do this? What if the show is a disaster and everyone realizes I'm a fraud? Then we'll deal with it, together. His arms tightened around her. But you're not a fraud, Lena. You're just scared. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, frauds don't care if they fail. You care too much. That's not the same thing. They stood there in her studio, surrounded by canvases and the smell of turpentine, and Lena let herself believe him. Just for a moment, she let herself imagine that this could work, that she could have the career and the relationship and everything else she'd never let herself want. The moment broke when her phone rang. Casey. I should get that, Lena said, not moving. Should you? The phone stopped ringing, started again immediately. Lena pulled away, answered. Hey, Are you sleeping with Victor Moretti? Casey's voice was sharp, angry. Lena's stomach dropped. What? How did you? Page 6. There's a photo of you two leaving his building together yesterday morning. You're wearing the same dress from the night before. It doesn't take a genius, Lena. Casey, I can explain. Can you? Because it looks like you're sleeping with the guy who's bankrolling your entire career. Do you know how that looks? It's not like that. Then what's it like? Because from here it looks like you sold yourself for a gallery show. The words hit like a slap. Lena's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. That's not fair. Isn't it? A month ago you were starving. Now you're dating a billionaire and getting shows in Chelsea. You don't think people are going to connect those dots? My work is good. The show is because my work is good. Maybe. But nobody's going to believe that now. Casey's voice softened slightly. Lena, I'm trying to protect you. This world is brutal to women who get ahead by sleeping with powerful men. Even if that's not what happened, that's what they'll say. I don't care what they say. You will when it destroys your career before it starts. Lena hung up. Her hands were shaking, tears finally spilling over. Victor was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Let me guess, he said. Someone saw the photos. Page 6. We were in page 6. Lena laughed, but it came out broken. I didn't even know they photographed us. They always photographed me. I should have warned you. He pulled out his phone, typed something. I'll have my publicist handle it. Handle it how? They're not wrong. We are sleeping together. You did get me the gallery show. I introduced you to Diana. She made her own decision based on your work. That's not how people will see it. I don't care how people see it. Well, I do. The words came out louder than she intended. You get to not care because you're already successful, already established. I'm nobody. And now I'm nobody who slept her way into a gallery show. Victor's expression hardened. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter. That's what they'll say. So prove them wrong. Do the show. Let your work speak for itself. And if it's not good enough? It is. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Victor crossed to her, grabbed her shoulders. Not gentle, but not rough either. Firm, grounding. I've spent 20 years learning to assess value. I know when something is worth investing in. You are worth it. Your work is worth it. And I don't give a damn what page 6 or anyone else says about it. Easy for you to say. Your reputation isn't the one getting destroyed. You think my reputation isn't taking a hit? I'm the billionaire predator who found a struggling art student and swooped in. Trust me, I'm getting my share of judgment. He released her shoulders, stepped back. But I don't care, because this, he gestured between them, is worth more than protecting my image. Lena wiped at her tears, hating that she was crying. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be with someone like you. Handle this level of scrutiny. Create art that's good enough to justify all of it. She sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. I'm just a girl from Queens who's good at painting. I'm not built for this world. Victor knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. You're right. You're a girl from Queens who's good at painting. But you're also talented enough that Diana Chen wants to show your work. Strong enough to survive on 73 cents and a dream. Brave enough to say yes when I offered you help, even though it terrified you. His hands found hers. You are built for this. You just don't know it yet. What if you're wrong? Then I'm wrong. But I'd rather bet on you and lose than not bet on you at all. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his faith in her was based on reality and not just his need to be right. But doubt was a familiar companion, and certainty was something she'd never learned to hold. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll do the show. But if this blows up in my face, it won't. When it blows up in my face, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough." He stood, pulled her up with him. "Now stop spiraling and paint. You have 3 pieces to finish and approximately 7 weeks to do it." 6 weeks. "You're going to need 1 week to panic. I'm accounting for that." Despite everything, Lena laughed. "You're ridiculous." "I'm practical." He kissed her forehead. "I have to go. Meetings, but I'll be back tonight. Text me if you need anything." After he left, Lena stood alone in her studio and looked at the chaotic painting she'd created while tipsy and unfiltered. It was a mess, but it was also alive in a way her more careful work wasn't. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe the fear was getting in the way of the truth. She picked up her brush and got to work. The next 6 weeks were a blur of paint and panic. Lena worked 12-hour days, creating and destroying and creating again. She finished 1 piece, hated it, started over. The second attempt was better. The third was worse. She kept the second. Victor appeared at random intervals, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit and watch her work. He didn't offer advice or criticism, just presence. Somehow that helped more than words would have. The Page 6 article had spawned others. New York Magazine ran a piece on artists and their wealthy patrons. Someone on Twitter started a thread about power imbalances in the art world, using Lena and Victor as the primary example. Diana called twice to make sure Lena wasn't backing out. "The controversy is good for the show," Diana said during the second call. "People will come just to judge you. Then they'll see the work and realize they were wrong. And if they're not wrong, then they'll buy it anyway because controversy sells." Diana's pragmatism was almost comforting. "Stop reading the articles. Focus on the work." Easier said than done. But Lena tried. She stayed off social media, ignored the think pieces, and poured everything into the canvases. By mid-June, she had 3 pieces finished. The figure at the edge. A new piece showing hands, not reaching this time, but holding something precious and fragile. And a third that was pure emotion, abstract swirls of color that represented the feeling of standing in a spotlight when you'd spent your whole life in shadow. She photographed them, sent the images to Diana. The response came within an hour. "Perfect. These are exactly what I wanted. Installation is July 10th. Be there at 9 a.m. Lena stared at the message until the words blurred. This was happening. Actually, really happening. Her phone rang. "Victor, Diana loved them," he said without preamble. "How do you know?" "She texted me, said, and I quote, 'You were right about her. Don't let that go to your head.'" "Too late. I can hear the smug in your voice." "I'm allowed to be smug when I'm right." A pause. "Come to dinner. We're celebrating." "Victor, I look like I've been living in a paint factory." "I don't care. Come anyway." She went. She showed up at his penthouse in paint-stained jeans and a t-shirt that had seen better days, her hair in a messy knot. Victor answered the door in similar casual wear, barefoot and relaxed. "You look perfect," he said, pulling her inside. "I look like a disaster." "Same thing." He led her to the dining room where he'd set up an elaborate meal. Or someone had, more likely. Lena didn't care. She was starving and the food smelled amazing. They ate and talked about everything except the show. Victor told her about the deal he was working on, some building in Brooklyn he was trying to acquire. Lena told him about Casey, who'd finally apologized for the harsh words but still worried. "She's not wrong to worry," Lena said, picking at her dessert. "This could still go badly." "It won't." "Stop saying that." "I'll stop saying it when it stops being true." Victor reached across the table, took her hand. "I want to show you something." He led her to his study, to the wall where her 3 paintings hung. But next to them was a new piece, the chaotic one she'd painted while tipsy, the one that was supposed to be just for her. "Where did you get that?" Lena asked, shocked. "I had it framed, hung it yesterday." Victor stood next to her, both of them looking at the wall. "These 4 paintings. This is your evolution. From hunger to hope to choice to freedom. This is the story of who you're becoming." Lena's throat tightened. "That one wasn't for sale." "I know. Consider it a loan. When you're famous and need it for a retrospective, you can have it back." "When I'm famous."
Not if. Never if. Always when. He turned her to face him. I believe in you, Lena. Even when you don't believe in yourself, especially then. She kissed him, tasting wine and certainty. They made their way to his bedroom, shedding clothes and doubt in equal measure. Later, tangled in sheets with the city glowing beyond the windows, Lena let herself imagine the future. Gallery shows. Recognition. A career built on her own talent, not just Victor's connections. And maybe, if she was very lucky, someone who stayed instead of leaving. What are you thinking? Victor asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. That I'm terrified and excited and I don't know which one is stronger. That sounds about right. He pressed a kiss to her temple. The opening is in 3 weeks. Are you ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's all anyone can ask. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and Lena dreamed of standing at edges and choosing to jump. The installation day came too fast. Lena stood in Diana's gallery at 9 in the morning, watching professionals hang her work alongside 4 other artists. Her pieces looked small next to some of the others, intimate where they were grand. But they also held their own, commanding attention in quieter ways. Diana walked the space, adjusting placements and making notes. She stopped in front of Lena's figure at the edge piece, studying it for a long moment. This one goes center wall, she said to her assistant. It's the anchor. Lena's heart jumped. Center wall was prime placement, the first thing people would see when they entered this section of the gallery. You sure? She asked Diana. I don't make decisions I'm not sure about. Diana turned to face her. This piece is powerful, Lena. Own that. By noon, everything was hung. The gallery looked professional, polished, ready. Lena took photos, sent them to Victor. His response, told you so. She typed back, smug doesn't look good on you. Everything looks good on me. Insufferable. You love it. And somehow, impossibly, she did. The opening was July 15th, a Friday night. Lena spent the day trying not to throw up from nerves. Casey came over, helped her get ready, apologized again for being harsh. I was scared for you, Casey said, zipping up Lena's dress. Black, simple, borrowed from a designer Diana knew. I'm still scared, but I'm also proud of you. Thanks, I think. Knock them dead tonight. Victor sent a car at 6. Lena rode through Manhattan in a daze, watching the city blur past. This was it. The moment everything either came together or fell apart. The gallery was already crowded when she arrived. People milling around with wine glasses, studying the art, making judgments. Lena spotted critics, collectors, other artists. Too many people, too much attention. Diana found her immediately. There you are. Come on. I want you to meet some people. The next 2 hours were surreal. Lena talked to strangers about her work, explained her process, watched people study her paintings with expressions ranging from moved to confused to critical. Someone from Art News asked for an interview. A collector inquired about purchasing the Hands piece. Through it all, Lena kept looking for Victor. He'd said he'd be here, but she hadn't seen him yet. Then, at 8:30, he appeared. Not alone. He had a group with him. Wealthy-looking people, influential-looking people. Richard Blackwell was among them. Victor caught her eye across the room, and Lena felt that familiar jolt of connection. He made his way to her, the crowd parting naturally. You came, she said, stupid with relief. I told you I would. He gestured to his companions. I brought potential buyers, hope that's okay. You brought potential buyers to my opening. I'm nothing if not efficient. He turned to the group. This is Lena Hart, the artist I've been telling you about. Lena, this is everyone who matters in New York real estate, which means they all have too much money and empty walls that need filling. The group laughed. Introductions were made, people asked about her work, her process, her plans. Victor stood slightly behind her, silent support, letting her handle it. By 9 o'clock, Lena had sold 2 pieces. By 10, all 3 had red dots next to them, sold, reserved, spoken for. Diana found her near the end of the night, looking pleased. You did well, Diana said. Really well. People are talking, the right people. Thank you for taking a chance on me. I didn't take a chance. I made a smart investment. Diana glanced at Victor, who was across the room talking to someone. He was right about you. Don't make me regret trusting his judgment. After the gallery closed, after the crowds dispersed, Lena stood alone in the empty space and looked at her work on the walls, her name on the placard.
Her vision made real and recognized. She'd done it, actually done it. Victor appeared beside her, jacket off, tie loosened. "How do you feel?" "Like I might throw up." "That's the adrenaline. It'll pass." He wrapped an arm around her waist. "You were incredible tonight." I was terrified. Didn't show. He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Come on, let's get out of here." They walked out into the Manhattan night, and for once, Lena wasn't invisible. People on the street recognized Victor, looked at her with curiosity. Tomorrow there would be more articles, more scrutiny, more judgment. But tonight, she'd proven something. Maybe not to everyone. Maybe not even to herself, not completely, but to the people who mattered. Diana, the collectors, the critics who'd shown up. She'd proven she belonged. The rest would come. Or it wouldn't. Either way, she'd keep painting. That was the only certainty she needed. The morning after the opening, Lena woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Reviews, mostly. Some good, some brutal, all of them talking about her like she was suddenly a person who mattered. Art News called her work raw and unflinching, a fresh voice in a scene that desperately needs one. The Times was less generous, suggesting her technical skills couldn't quite match her emotional ambition. Someone on Twitter had started a thread dissecting whether she deserved the attention or if Victor's money had bought her way in. Lena read them all, sitting in Victor's bed while he slept beside her, and felt nothing. Not joy, not devastation, just a strange numbness that came from being seen after a lifetime of invisibility. "Stop reading those," Victor said without opening his eyes. "How did you know?" "You get tense when you read reviews. I can feel it from here." He rolled over, squinted at her phone. "What are they saying?" "That I'm either brilliant or a fraud, depending on who's writing." "Sounds about right." He pulled her back down into the sheets. "Both things can be true, you know." "That's not comforting." "It's honest." He kissed her shoulder. "Every artist gets torn apart by critics. If they love you immediately, you're doing something safe. The fact that they're divided means you're doing something that matters." Lena wanted to believe that. Instead, she said, "3 people asked me last night if we were really together, or if this was just PR." Victor went still. "What did you tell them?" "I said it wasn't their business." "Good answer." But his voice had changed, gone careful. "Does it bother you, people questioning us?" "Everything bothers me. I'm an anxious person. It's kind of my thing." She turned to face him. "But no, not the way you mean. I don't care what they think about us." Liar. "Okay, I care a little, but not enough to stop." She traced the line of his jaw. "Are we going to talk about what happens now?" "Now you paint more. Build on the momentum. Diana already has collectors asking about your next work." "I meant with us." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. I've never been in a relationship that lasted longer than a few months. And I've definitely never been with someone who—" She gestured around the penthouse, at the casual wealth that surrounded them. "Someone like you. Someone rich. Someone powerful. Someone who could destroy me with a phone call. I would never—" "I know, but you could. That scares me." She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. 6 months ago, I was starving. Now I have a gallery show, and I'm sleeping with a billionaire, and I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." Victor sat up too, serious now. "What shoe?" "The one where you get bored, or I fail to live up to expectations, or someone prettier and less complicated comes along." She hated how small her voice sounded. "I'm not built for this world, Victor. I don't know how to be the person you need me to be." "I don't need you to be anyone except yourself." "You say that now. But 6 months from now? A year? When the novelty wears off and you realize I'm just a girl who paints and overthinks everything?" Victor grabbed her hand, held it tight enough to ground her. "Look at me." She did. His expression was more serious than she'd ever seen it. "I'm 43 years old. I've dated more women than I care to count. Models, actresses, socialites, people who were perfect on paper and empty in reality. You know what they all had in common?" "What?" They wanted something from me: money, connection, status. They performed versions of themselves they thought I wanted to see. And I let them, because that was easier than risking something real. He pulled her closer. You're the first person in 20 years who's looked at everything I have and still been scared to take it. Who argues with me? Who tells me when I'm being manipulative? Who makes me want to be honest instead of strategic? That's just because I'm too stupid to know better. That's because you're brave enough to be yourself. He cupped her face. I'm not going to get bored. I'm not going anywhere. And if you fail, which you won't, I'll still be here. You understand? Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this powerful, complicated man actually meant what he said. Okay. That's not an answer. I need to know you believe me. I'm trying to believe you. That's the best I can do right now. Victor studied her face, then nodded. Okay, we'll work with that. He kissed her, gentle this time. Get dressed. I want to take you somewhere. Where? You'll see. An hour later, they were standing in front of a building in Tribeca. Not Victor's building, a different one, older, with character. He led her inside, up to the 4th floor, and unlocked a door. The apartment beyond was empty, but beautiful. High ceilings, exposed brick, windows overlooking the street. Bigger than Lena's current place by at least 3 times. What is this? She asked. Yours, if you want it. Victor leaned against the doorframe. The lease on your apartment is up next month. I thought you might want something with more space, proper light for painting, a place that doesn't require choosing between heat and groceries. Lena walked through the space, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. It was perfect. Too perfect. I can't afford this. You can. You just sold 3 paintings for $60,000 total. Diana's already lining up commissions. You're about to start making real money. Victor, before you argue, the rent is $2,500 a month. That's market rate for Tribeca. No special treatment. You can afford it with your earnings and still have money left over for supplies and living expenses. She wanted it. Standing in this empty apartment, she could see herself here. Working, living, being the person she was becoming instead of the person she'd been. This feels like another rescue. It's not. It's you leveling up because you've earned it. He crossed to where she stood by the windows. But if it makes you feel better, you can say no. Keep your old place, stay uncomfortable and cold. I won't push. You're always pushing. Only when I think you need it. His expression softened. Take the apartment, Lena. You've worked for this. Let yourself have it. She looked around the space again. Imagined her canvases against these walls, her life spread out in rooms she could actually breathe in. Okay, yes, I'll take it. Good. Victor pulled out his phone. I'll have Margaret draw up the lease. You can move in any time. Just like that? Just like that. They spent the afternoon planning the space, where her studio area would go, what furniture she'd need. Victor offered to buy everything, and Lena negotiated him down to lending her enough to get started. She'd pay him back, she insisted. He agreed, knowing she probably wouldn't let him refuse. Later, sitting on the floor of her new empty apartment eating takeout, Lena felt something shift inside her. Not happiness exactly, too complicated for that, but rightness. Like pieces of her life were finally clicking into place. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? All of it. The apartment, the gallery connection, catching me when I fell. She looked at him. Seeing me when I was invisible. You were never invisible, just overlooked. Victor set down his food, pulled her close. And I didn't do any of this to earn your gratitude. I did it because I wanted to. Because you deserved it. Because watching you succeed makes me happier than any deal I've ever closed. That's corny. Doesn't make it less true. They kissed, and Lena let herself sink into it. Into him. Into this strange new life that was hers, if she was brave enough to claim it. The next 3 months were a blur of productivity and growth. Lena moved into the Tribeca apartment, slowly filling it with furniture and art supplies and the detritus of a life being lived instead of just survived. Commissions came in, people who'd seen the gallery show, collectors Victor introduced her to, galleries in other cities wanting to feature her work. Money started flowing in ways she'd never experienced. Real money, earned money, enough that she could actually save some
instead of living payment to payment. She paid off her credit cards, bought herself a new phone that didn't have a cracked screen, took Casey out to dinner at a place they used to walk past and dream about. "This is surreal," Casey said, looking around the restaurant. "6 months ago, you were eating ramen for every meal." "I know. Sometimes I wake up and think I'm going to find out it was all a dream." "How's it going with him, Victor?" Lena considered the question. "Good. Complicated. He wants me to move in with him." Casey nearly choked on her wine. "He what?" "Asked me to move into the penthouse. Said there's no point having 2 apartments when I spend most nights there anyway." "What did you say?" "I said I just moved into my own place and I'm not ready to give up that independence yet." "How'd he take it?" "Better than I expected. He said, okay, the offer stands whenever I'm ready." Lena picked at her food. "He's been different lately, more patient. Like he's trying to prove he's in this for the long haul." "Is he?" "I think so. I hope so." She met Casey's eyes. "I'm in love with him. That's terrifying." "Have you told him?" "Not yet. I'm scared to." "Lena, the man bought your art before he knew you, paid off your student loans, got you an apartment. I think he might already know." "Knowing and hearing it are different things." Casey reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "You deserve this. The success, the relationship, all of it. Stop waiting for it to disappear and just let yourself have it." But letting herself have it meant being vulnerable, meant trusting that Victor wouldn't leave like everyone else had. And that was harder than any painting she'd ever attempted. That night, back at Victor's penthouse, Lena found him in his study working late. He looked tired, stressed in ways he usually hid. "Bad day?" she asked from the doorway. "Complicated day. Developer trying to back out of a contract, lawyers being useless, the usual." He rubbed his eyes. "How was dinner with Casey?" "Good. She thinks I should move in with you." Victor looked up sharply. "She does?" "She thinks I'm being stubborn for the sake of being stubborn." "Are you?" Lena came into the room, perched on the edge of his desk. "Maybe. Probably. I like having my own space. But I also sleep here most nights anyway, so it's kind of pointless." "I'm not going to push you. I know. That's what makes this harder." She took a breath. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "What do you want from this?" "From us? Long term." Victor set down his pen, gave her his full attention. "I want you in my life. Permanently. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to support your career and watch you become the artist I know you can be. I want—" He paused and for the first time looked uncertain. "I want everything, Lena. All of it. You, us, a future. Is that too much?" Her heart was pounding. "No, that's not too much." "What do you want?" "Same thing, I think, but I'm scared." "Of what?" "That I'm not enough for you, that this world you live in will chew me up and spit me out, that you'll realize you made a mistake." She forced herself to look at him. "I love you. That terrifies me." Victor went very still. "Say that again." "I love you. I'm terrified. Both things are true." He stood, crossed to her in 2 strides, and kissed her hard enough to bruise. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with something that looked like relief. "I love you too," he said. "Have since that first night, probably. Definitely, since you told me you didn't take charity while literally starving. You're stubborn and anxious, and you overthink everything, and I love all of it." Lena laughed, tears spilling over. "We're a mess." "The best things usually are." He wiped her tears with his thumbs. "Move in with me. Not because it's practical or because Casey said so. Because you want to. Because this is real and we both know it." "Okay. Okay. Okay. Yes. I'll move in." She kissed him again. "But I'm keeping the studio apartment. For working, I need space that's just mine." "Deal." Victor pulled her closer. "Anything else?" "Yeah, stop working and come to bed. You look exhausted." "Bossy." "You love it. I really do." They moved through the penthouse together, and Lena felt something settle in her chest. This was home. Not the building or the expensive furniture, but this. Being with someone who saw her, who stayed, who loved her sharp edges instead of trying to smooth them out. She'd spent her whole life invisible, afraid to want things, convinced she didn't deserve them. Victor had seen her anyway, had offered her everything, expecting nothing in return except that she be herself. And somehow, impossibly, that had been enough. The months that followed were the happiest of Lena's life. She split her time between the studio apartment where she worked and Victor's penthouse where they lived. Her career exploded in ways she'd never imagined. Galleries in Los Angeles and Miami wanted her work. A museum in Boston acquired one of her pieces for their permanent collection. Art Forum did a profile calling her the raw voice of a generation learning to speak. The scrutiny didn't stop. People still questioned her relationship with Victor, still suggested she'd slept her way to success, but she'd learned to ignore it, to let her work speak for itself. And the work was good, getting better. Without the weight of survival crushing her, she created pieces that were more honest, more vulnerable, more real. Victor's presence in her life settled into something steady. They fought sometimes, about her refusing to let him pay for things she could afford herself, about his tendency to make decisions without consulting her, about her habit of disappearing into her work for days at a time. But they also laughed, made love, built a life that was messy and complicated and utterly theirs. 10 months after that first gallery show, Diana approached Lena about a solo exhibition. Full gallery, all her work, complete creative control. The kind of show that made careers. "You're ready for this," Diana said over coffee in Chelsea. "The question is, are you ready to commit? A solo show requires 20 to 30 pieces. Can you produce that in 6 months?" Lena thought about it, about the ideas spinning in her head, the canvases waiting in her studio, the confidence she'd built piece by piece. "Yes, I can do that." "Good, because I'm betting my reputation on you again. Don't make me regret it," that night Lena told Victor over dinner. He listened, asked questions, and then said, "I want to commission a piece for the show. You already own half my work, so I'll own more. I want you to paint us." "Us?" "The night we met, me catching you, that moment." He reached across the table. "I want to remember how this started." "That's sentimental. I'm allowed to be sentimental about you." Lena considered it. She'd never painted them before, never wanted to make their relationship part of her public work, but maybe it was time. "Okay, I'll paint it, but only if you promise not to be weird if I make you look less perfect than you think you are." "I'll try to contain my ego." The painting took 3 weeks. Lena worked from memory and feeling, trying to capture that moment of falling and being caught. The vulnerability of it, the trust, the shock of connection. When it was finished, she called Victor to the studio. He stood in front of the canvas for a long time without speaking. The painting showed 2 figures, one falling, one catching. Their faces weren't detailed, more suggestion than portraiture. But the emotion was there, raw and real, the moment before everything changed. "This is it," Victor said quietly. "This is exactly how it felt." "Like you were saving me?" "Like we were saving each other." He turned to look at her. "I was drowning too, you know. In success and money and accomplishments that meant nothing. Then I caught you and suddenly I had a reason to feel things again." Lena's throat tightened. "You never told me that." "Didn't know how to say it without sounding pathetic." He pulled her close. "But it's true. You saved me as much as I saved you. Maybe more." They stood there in her studio, surrounded by unfinished canvases and the smell of paint, and Lena felt the last piece of doubt dissolve. This was real. Victor was real. They were building something that mattered, and it wasn't going to disappear. The solo show opened in December, nearly a year after that first gallery opening. Lena stood in Diana's gallery surrounded by her work, 30 pieces spanning the last year, from the early desperate paintings to newer pieces full of light and possibility. The painting of her and Victor hung center wall, the anchor of the entire show. The opening was packed. Critics, collectors, friends, strangers. Casey came with her new girlfriend. Margaret showed up with flowers. And Victor, of course, standing slightly apart from the crowd, watching Lena navigate the room with pride written all over his face. The reviews the next day were unanimous. Glowing, even the critics who'd dismissed her before. The Times called it a stunning evolution from an artist who's found her voice and isn't afraid to use it. Art News said she was redefining contemporary figurative work for a new generation. 3 pieces sold within the first week, 10 more by the end of the month. Diana extended the show by 2 weeks to meet demand. Lena had made it. Actually, really made it.
On New Year's Eve, Victor took her back to where it all started, the Ashford Gallery where she'd collapsed a year ago. They'd rented the space for a private party, invited only the people who mattered. Small, intimate, nothing like the galas Lena used to serve at. As midnight approached, Victor led her to the private room where he'd first helped her. The same leather couch, the same windows overlooking the city. "A year ago," he said, "you fell and I caught you. You were starving and terrified and convinced you didn't deserve help. I remember. Now look at you, successful artist, sold-out show, living the life you always deserved." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I told you I wanted everything. I meant it." Lena's heart stopped. "Victor, let me finish." He opened the box, revealed a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "I'm not asking you to stop being yourself. I'm not asking you to give up your independence or your studio or any of the things that make you who you are. I'm just asking you to choose this. Choose us. Choose the life we're building together." Tears were streaming down Lena's face. "You're proposing." "I'm proposing. Worst timing ever. Completely cliche, but I don't care. I love you. I want to marry you. Will you say yes?" A year ago, Lena had been invisible, starving, convinced she'd never be enough for anyone or anything. She'd fallen, and this man had caught her, and then he'd refused to let go even when she'd tried to push him away. He'd seen her when no one else had, believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself, given her not just resources, but hope, possibility, a future worth fighting for. And now he was offering her everything. There was only one answer. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Victor slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed as fireworks exploded over Manhattan. Outside the window, the city sparkled with promise. Inside, two people who'd found each other against all odds held tight and refused to let go. The party erupted in cheers when they returned to the main room, the ring catching light. Casey hugged Lena so hard she couldn't breathe. Diana kissed both their cheeks and said something about love and art and the importance of finding someone who sees you. Later, much later, Lena and Victor stood on his penthouse balcony watching the last of the fireworks fade. The ring felt foreign on her finger, a weight she'd need to get used to. But good foreign. Right foreign. "Any regrets?" Victor asked, his arm around her waist. "About saying yes?" "No." "About everything else?" "Also no." She leaned into him. "You know people are going to say I married you for your money. Let them say it. We know the truth." "Which is?" "That you fought me every step of the way, made me work for every inch, refused to make any of this easy." He kissed the top of her head. "And that I'd choose you, broke or rich, famous or unknown, easy or difficult. Because you're you, and that's all I've ever wanted." Lena turned in his arms, looked up at this complicated, powerful, impossible man who'd caught her when she fell and refused to let her stay fallen. "I love you. I love you too." He smiled. "Ready for whatever comes next?" She thought about it, about the career she'd built, the life she'd claimed, the future stretching out ahead of them. Unknown, uncertain, full of possibility. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, playing small, convinced she didn't deserve more. Now she stood 40 stories above Manhattan, engaged to a billionaire, with a sold-out gallery show and a future that was entirely hers to shape. She'd stopped falling and started flying. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." They went inside together, leaving the city and its lights behind. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts, new reasons to be afraid. But tonight, Lena had everything she'd never let herself want. And this time, when she chose to jump, she knew exactly where she'd land, in the arms of someone who'd catch her every single time,